it's some interesting software, but like uh I would like to see them fine tune it more because it's a little robotic. Um
Well, maybe, right? You need to get that RTX card.
Yo, I mean, I was really thinking about it. That was one of the things that was gonna make me get it, and I'll still get it for ray tracing. Yo, Captain Tippett is like all two ray tracing games.
Yeah, but think about how good those two games will look.
Yo, they look so good. But you know what though? There are a surprising amount of ray tracing games out there. It's enough of them. Like I mean, I play a lot of AAA games,
Hmm.
and so like I love like image quality and frame rates. Like that perfect balance. Like if you can like if you can push those like super ultra settings that are like super futuristic and get like 60 to 90 frames, man, like that's a big deal in my opinion. And like I mean, let's see, like Tomb Raider has ray tracing, Call of Duty has ray tracing. There's two of them. Battlefield has ray tracing. I'm running out. I'm running out already. It really isn't a lot of them. But I'm here for it though. Like it's here to stay. Like I think it's people are adapting it faster than they adapted VR.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's nothing holding you back from ray tracing other than high horsepower hardware,
Mm-hmm.
right? So,
That's
like
true.
VR is a whole different ball game because, I mean, it's not just a video card. It's like you have to have a good video card. You have to have, this hardware. You have to have the space that can accommodate you standing in your room flailing your arms around.
Mm-hmm.
That's a whole different. There are a lot more obstacles to overcome with making VR sort of, you know, mass market. Like, you could sell everybody a gaming console that is capable of ray tracing, and eventually games will start being made that take advantage of that. Whereas you're not going to sell a VR setup to everybody that buys a console because it's just unrealistic. For the space constraints alone are a huge hurdle for a lot of people.
Right. That's a good point. Oh man, speaking of space constraints, the next gen consoles are like spaceships, dude.
Oh, the new PlayStation.
Oh my god, they're huge.
Yeah, I saw that. And like the PlayStation's standing upright. I mean, the Xbox is the cooler looking one, but I don't know. I kind of like the weirdness of the PlayStation.
Me too, man. You know what? I think they're both weird. Like people made fun of how weird the Xbox is. Like if you think about it, like it's really weird in every sense of the word, right? Like last generation, and even like I mean, maybe even through like the PlayStation 2, like the PlayStation, the Sony brand has always been sleek, modern, futuristic, like black svelte, like premium, right?
Hmm.
And they were self-contained, very like purposefully self-contained, right? Like PlayStation 3 was a very good example of that. Like the motherfuckers had a Spider-Man controller, or it was like the Spider-Man PlayStation font with like the boomerang controller. Like you look like you can throw it and it'll come back to you, like and like they went there and people they screamed about it and Sony got scared and then they kind of backtracked a little bit and then we got the PlayStation 3 which was a hot mess. But like we that's how we know PlayStation, right? And Xbox has always kind of been the strange one. Um but this time Xbox just does like a strange black cube that
Yeah, man. What's wrong with the black box?
it's awesome. It's
Yeah,
strange. It's
yeah.
like it is like when you think about like I've been looking up a lot of like horror movies, right? And like the reason why horror movies are so like interesting, like they're not horror movies aren't always like oh my god jump scare scary. Like sometimes they're just strange and you don't understand them and you like that scene on The Shining, right? Where like homegirl is running away from her husband and then she goes up those stairs and she looks to her right and that dude is getting head by that guy with the pig mask on and she's just like look like what the fuck, like remember that shit, like that of all the scenes in that movie, like that one, like that tilted me like Resident Evil, right? Because I was just like let me what I why are you what the like I just couldn't process it, right? Like Xbox, like going into this generation, they have just like, and Sony, for all intents and purposes, are like they're finally play like they're doing some risky, unsafe stuff that I appreciate. But like, you know, Xbox went full strange. Like they kind of like haven't been focusing on exclusives. They've been opening their doors up to like, you know, all different consoles and different platforms. And not focusing so much on selling consoles so much as they have been selling their brand and their platform and like getting people access into that whole like ecosystem or whatever. But then you have like the Xbox Series X, which is for all intents and purposes a PC. Like,
Right.
it has parts that you can take in and out. I think like it's, you know,
Oh yeah.
it's pretty modular. Like it's a PC, and people called it a big fucking refrigerator. It was just it's a big black cube. Like that's kind of creepy, right? Like, and it does all these things that consoles before it didn't really do. Like it just breaks all these rules, right? But then Sony comes around and out refrigerators the big refrigerator. And then they call that thing a fucking router. Like, and like the dev kit was like a V. Like, it's just fucking weird.
Oh, the dev kit one was super weird looking. It didn't even look like, I was like, I mean, it does, oh God. From an industrial design standpoint, I was like, you cannot possibly try to sell that thing.
Everyone thought it was fake. It's brilliant.
Yeah, at least the final version, it looks like it just looks like some alien ship in Halo or something.
Yeah, it looks like the future.
Yeah.
Like, man, you know, I like people don't realize like this is why I think ray tracing is so fucking exciting. This is why I think the next generation of consoles is so fucking exciting. Like, I don't think people realize. Like, so I think that like 2015 to 2020 like was effectively we were effectively stepping into the future. Like I feel like things were happening so fast that nobody really realized it, but like the way social media took off, the way privacy started to kind of get questioned, VR started taking off, like all of these, you know, everybody is like a phone is now kind of effectively an extension of your person. Like, you know, it is like now everybody's in, you know, we're stuck in that fucking house because there's a goddamn pandemic outside, and so now people are finding more things to do at home. Like for all intents and purposes. Oh, and meanwhile, like, you know, phones are getting cheaper, but they're getting fancier, right? And it's like, you know, so now everybody has fancy phones, and like, and then there here comes ray tracing, right? Like, so ray tracing, I used to like, I would hear that term get thrown around a long time ago. I would spend time on Quake 2 forums, like finding out how to like, you know, mod my games and like, you know, make textures and models and stuff like that. Like I never really got into that stuff like the way other people did, but like, you know, I was constantly modding my game. I was constantly finding ways to like, you know, manipulate the game. And they were like, you know, they would talk about how Quake 2, the way it handles lighting is like, you know, if it could do ray tracing, it would be perfect because of the way Quake 2's maps and models, like the way like they handled like lighting. But they were like, we would never achieve ray tracing in our lifetime. Like that is CG quality, like Toy Story. Like we'll never get that in our lifetime. Like this was like in like, you know, the early 2000s maybe. Like I mean like the early 2000s. Like they're like we won't see that in our lifetime. Like that's how people talked about that. Like it was just like it wasn't even a pipe dream. Like they were just like, forget about it. Like that's Jesus. Like,
and so here we are in the future.
Yes, we are here. Like, and so like it is like, you know, and there aren't a lot of games out on it, right? But like just think about that for a second. Like Toy Story level quality lighting. Like, you know, before that was impossible. We had to mimic it, and we had to find all these tricks. Like, and it's small stuff that we don't even think that we realize that we take for granted, right? Like you can even look at like, you know, like that mirror in my background, like, you know, the whole idea of like, you know, reflections on like a screen is like, you know, any video game that's being rendered in real time that's not being ray traced, like it can't reflect anything that's not being visibly shown on the screen, and you don't even recognize that until like, you know, you see, you know, you look into a reflection and you can see a guy creeping up behind you, like, you know, out of like, you know, a window reflection, or like maybe the reflection out of your gun, or like,
right,
you know,
right. Yeah, it's not a specifically programmed mirror.
Yeah, it's like it's 100% like, and then like the way all that's just like the reflections, not even to account like the lighting and how it like does the same stuff in real time, like, and it all that stuff's early right now, but we kind of aren't even supposed to be able to be doing that right now. If you like think about the way these guys were talking about it just like 10 or 15 years ago, like they were just like, not only is it in like, that's like maybe our kids can do it in the future, like.
So if we're living in the future and our consoles look like the future, you know what doesn't look like the future? My living room.
Your living room.
Oh, no, because my living room just looks like a living room.
Yeah, man, but that's the beauty of it. You know what that reminds me of? Ready Player One.
Oh, I haven't seen it.
The book, actually.
Yeah.
I haven't finished it. I got maybe about halfway through it, but like the concept is interesting because it's like you are in like, so it's like it's set in the future, right? And the world's fucked. It's like post-apocalypse, right? Let me know if any of this sounds familiar. It's like it's post-apocalypse. There's like a huge wealth divide, and so like there's like ultra poor and there's ultra rich, and ultra rich get access to better education, that kind of thing, but like essentially everything's kind of shitty and slummy, and so most of the most civil parts of society happen in VR. In real life, people kind of live in like projects, but they're like stacks of like trailers, or like freight trailers that are like stacked on top of one another, and people live in them like trailers, and people have like extension cords and whatnot that route power into each of these places, and like they stack super high, like they're called stacks, and they like people don't normally go to the bottom of the stacks because a lot of crime happens there, but people go into this world to like get their education and like have their fun or whatever, but they can like, they're like uncharted parts of this world that they can go to and really mess their stuff up. But it reminds me a lot of kind of like it I don't know when the book was made, like maybe like the 2000s or something, maybe even earlier than that, I don't know, but it draws a lot of parallels kind of to like the path that we're on now, like I guess it talks about how like our the world at large, like social leaders kind of failed to steer us away from this kind of post-apocalypse, but we still have access to all this amazing technology, and so life goes on still. But like all of this interesting stuff happens, like literally like Monster Hunter level shit happens in the virtual reality world, and like people have like, they live their life as entire avatars, and they go to school as these avatars, and they make friends as these avatars, and they'll never meet these people ever in their lives. It's like straight up VR chat.
Right. It's kind of like yeah, I mean there's some parallels there to the Matrix, right? Like you're living inside this fabricated reality. Most of your existence, most of your consciousness exists inside this fabricated reality, and your physical self then just becomes a shell, just a battery, right? Like in the Matrix.
Yep. And it's like, it's interesting, like the Matrix comparison is interesting because like with the Matrix, like there's either you are totally unaware that you are in the Matrix, or you're like hyper aware that you're in the Matrix, and you probably prefer that.
Right. Well, you make the choice, right? The two pills.
Right. But with Ready Player One, everybody's hyper aware of the Matrix, and you can't stay in the Matrix. And in fact, your access to the Matrix, you have to buy into it. And if you don't have if you don't have the best resources outside of the Matrix, then you're going to be cut off of the best parts of what's inside of the Matrix.
Oh, interesting.
It's like
those social classes and bringing them inside the virtual world too.
Right. Yeah. It's like being stuck with a level 1 character.
Right.
And all of your friends are like, level 30 and level 40, and so they can go on risky adventures that you can't go on because you'll die. Pretty interesting, right?